Trade Guitars is giving away this Gibson Custom Shop Les Paul to one of you. How to enter? Subscribe to Play and Trade Guitars on YouTube, and we'll give it away when we hit 50,000 subscribers. Hey, for Play and Trade Guitars, I'm John, that's Zach behind the camera, and this is Play and Trade Guitars, where we play it and trade it. Continuing our look at the best-selling guitars from Gibson today, looking at the very cool SG Standard 61, a fairly recent addition to the lineup. We'll get that out of here, we're gonna put it on the bench and take it apart, talk full specs, and then of course we're gonna plug it in and play it. Remember that when you're in the market for any new gear, use our purchase link down in the description. It supports our channel directly when you buy using our link. And also make sure you're signed up for our Gleam giveaway. We're giving away a Gibson Custom Shop Les Paul, and we hit 50,000 subscribers and we're growing fast. Let's get to work. I'll tell you all about the history of the SG. We'll take a close look at this guitar and put it through all the paces and see how it sounds. Gibson brown hardshell case. Let's put this down on the floor, Zach, and we'll flip the latches and take our first look. All right, we'll flip these latches and get a first look at this. Oh man. Vintage cherry gloss nitro finish on this SG Standard 61. Although it could be called a Les Paul because that is exactly the point in history when the Les Paul ceased to be and the SG was born. It was part of a major redesign to compete with none other than Fender. The STRAT was outselling everybody, and Gibson needed a sleeker, thinner, faster playing guitar to compete with Fender sales. They cut production of the traditional Les Paul in 1960, and Les Paul's name actually continued to be on the truss rod cover of this redesign, which was called the Les Paul, until 1963, when his name came off the truss rod cover, and it dropped to just what we call today the SG, SG standing for solid guitar. But all the classic hallmarks of what makes an SG an SG is going to be a thinner piece of mahogany, 1 3/8 inches originally, 22 frets, and importantly, the neck joint meets the body at the 22nd fret. That means you have full uninterrupted access to all the frets, and you have this offset Florentine horn. And these had actually been featured on prior Gibson guitars, but never in combination like this. There were double cut guitars like the Les Paul Special double cut prior to the SG, but really this is kind of where all the modern pieces came together to have a guitar which really kicked sales into high gear, and Gibson had a big turnaround based on this popular design. So many players, as you know, everyone from of course Angus to Derek Trucks and everybody in between has played an SG, and why don't we head over to the bench so that we can take it apart and talk full specs, but man, what a beauty. All right, here we are on the bench. Let's start up top at the headstock. Got this beautiful classic Gibson open book headstock, mother of pearl Gibson. Nice Clusen double line style vintage tuners. Those are really sharp. Got a neck made of mahogany and a bound fretboard. So you're gonna have this nice white binding holding 22 frets with beautiful piece of rosewood on this SG. Coming down again, like I talked about, important feature here that the neck meets the body way up at the 22nd fret, giving you uninterrupted access. These are called Florentine cuts. Really, we all just call them horns though, right? Double cutaway design with the offset horns, made famous in this classic vintage cherry SG color as well. I also love the body carve. You got this kind of beveled edge going on the body itself, which you can see is a lot thinner. And actually that's probably a good place to start because it's a big hallmark of the SG design. You can see our thickness comes in at 1.34 inches, so much thinner than what's typically nowadays like a 2-inch Les Paul. And a Les Paul's gonna have a maple cap, and SG won't. So you're gonna have a thinner slab of mahogany, no cap of any type. And then on this guitar in particular, for the Standard 61, you're gonna have a set of the 60s burst buckers, which are actually some of my favorite burst buckers from experience. Gibson also makes just the SG Standard. That's gonna have a set of 490 humbuckers and a few other differences. But at the 61, we have this aluminum stop bar here. You also have the choice to have the vibrola, and that comes in 2 configurations. It adds to the price. And one big thing about the SG, you'll notice that the controls, volume, tone, are pretty far down on this right bottom bout of the guitar. And actually the reason for that is originally it was designed as the Les Paul Custom, and it had the sideways vibrola. And that bit of real estate would have sat right here. It then necessitated pushing these controls off into the bottom right to stay out of the way. One reason you sometimes hear SGs as being a guitar that has neck dive, meaning that the head wants to pull away from you in some cases, is because without that heavier vibrola in place with a stop bar, you run a higher risk. It was originally designed to have that heavier chunk of metal sitting here to counteract the weight of the headstock. Just something interesting that we learned at our factory tour, and you can check out that video as well. Another classic design here from a 1961 kind of reissue approach is this small guard. So the SG, you'll see, for instance, on the Standard, is going to have what they call a batwing or large guard, and that's going to be a pick guard that basically encases the humbuckers. This is the more vintage style small guard, which I think really looks sharp because you get more of this vintage cherry nitro gloss popping through. I actually prefer the small guard, but again, it's just a cosmetic thing. And you can drop a comment, let us know which one you prefer. Let's get the strings off and we'll take a look at all the electronics. And of course, after that, we'll plug it in and play it. If you're in the market, remember to use our purchase link because that supports us directly. Let's get to work. With the strings out of the way, you can get a look at the rosewood. Sometimes from the factory it comes a little bit dry, so I like to use something like a Diodario Hydrate just to revitalize the fretboard. While the hydrate soaks in, we'll start to get some neck measurements. So one other hallmark of the SG from 1961 is going to be the slim taper neck. So 60s neck are typically associated with a slimmer feel, and that'll be the case on this one. So let's see where it reads in. We've got a Graphtec nut. I wish we would have seen at least an option in the case candy to have Les Paul on the truss rod cover, but it was not included. Nut comes in here at 1.67 inches. First fret at 0.80, up to a 12th fret of 0.91 inches. Nicely bound neck. That's an important distinction that makes it an SG Standard, is a bound rosewood neck. Black dot fret markers here. ABR1 style bridge. We'll move that out of the way and pull these pickup covers off. All right, let's flip these pickup rings over and take a look at these 60s burst buckers. We have a Rhythm 61 in neck position. You can see that longer neck tenon. That's crucial in the design because if you're going to connect the neck to the body that way, you have to have enough tenon to come in and support. So we have a Rhythm 61 in neck, Lead 61 in bridge, some of my favorite burst buckers from experience. With the pickup flipped over, we'll go ahead and turn on our multimeter and get a quick reading here where it's 7.6 on bridge, 7.7 in neck, 3.8 combined. So with the Les Paul side by side with the SG, one other thing, the SG is generally thought of as a brighter sound for a combination of reasons. But I was just looking at the pickups, and it turns out that the pickup set is actually kind of scrunched in. So the closer you get to the bridge with the position of the pickup, the brighter it's going to get. And the set of pickups on the SG, actually from about midpoint of the bridge up, is about 5.5 inches to the top of the neck pickup, whereas in the Les Paul, from center point of the bridge up, it's about 6.5 inches. So the whole set is about an inch closer. I guess really the neck pickup is about an inch closer, giving the overall entire guitar probably a bit of a brighter sound just from that. Plus it just looks cool to see them side by side. Flipping the guitar over, let's take a quick look at the electronics. Lifting up the control cavity cover, you can see this is going to be the shorter style SG toggle switch. So in the case of the SG, the toggle switch is down by the volume and tone controls as opposed to on the opposite upper bout like a Les Paul. So to do that, they actually need a shorter three-way toggle switch. It's called an SG style toggle switch. That makes it nice and easy. And then you can see the hand wiring in this cavity. We're working with 500K pots. And nicely done in here. Orange drop capacitors are a nice touch too. One more thing to point out while the guitar is flipped over is just the actual shape of this heel joint here. On this guitar it's nicely rounded, and this design has gone through a few changes as well depending on how blocky this joint is or how rounded this beveled edge is. So you can just get a look at the shape. C-shaped, slim, taper neck. And one of the joys of an SG and that thinner body is less weight. So let's see where we come in. 6 pounds, 12 ounces, so 6.75 pounds. So nice and light, under 7 pounds. A lot of guitar players looking for something lighter to play than Les Paul also appreciate that as an obvious differentiator. So coming in under 7 pounds, basically impossible with a Les Paul. SG, meaner, leaner, and sleeker, so I like it. 6.75 pounds. Neck feels good, definitely that slim taper shape. Good ring to it. I always like the resonance of an SG. Something about an SG, you can just feel that whole guitar resonating. I don't know if it's that longer neck, but why don't we plug it in to get a real idea of what it sounds like. And remember, if you're in the market for any SG or any gear, use our purchase link down in the description. It supports us directly when you do that. We'll kick it off with some direct clean sounds to hear exactly what the guitar sounds like directly into our recording rig, and put a track on to let it sing. Let's get to work and drop a comment as we go. All right, the more I play SGs, the more I realize just how much I love them. They're so airy and bright and resonant, have such a voice, such a singing quality to them. I'm a big fan of the Burstbucker 60s pickups, as I've had experience in other guitars, including Les Pauls as well. They're probably my favorite Burstbucker, so I give definitely a big thumbs up to the Burstbucker 60s that are in here. Now, this 1961 SG Standard should also be compared against the regular SG Standard. The primary differences being just cosmetically, you have the bigger pickguard, which isn't going to affect the tone at all, but those pickups will be different. Keep in mind, you save $200 going from $1999 to $1799, but you will have a set of 490s instead of these Burstbucker 60s. And I've got to say, my experience with the Burstbucker 60s is enough of a reason for me to jump up to the 61 classic design, beautiful kind of throwback look to that 61 Les Paul SG. With those Burstbuckers, I think sound fantastic. I'm super impressed by this guitar. I really like this vintage cherry gloss finish on here. Guitar is really easy to play. In fact, it's funny, if you're used to playing a Les Paul, you'll actually find as you go to the upper register, you're actually so unencumbered that rather than kind of naturally have that heel block to rest your palm, you really do find yourself flying up to the upper register. And sometimes for me, I can overshoot a little bit. So it's a little bit of a course correction going to a new style of guitar to play sometimes. But I will tell you that it does exactly what it's supposed to do. The point of that is it's supposed to allow you to get around fast. And it's got this slim 60s neck. It's got this double cut with ultimate access to the upper register here, which is just a really, really fun kind of speedboat of a guitar to play. And you can see why this gave Fender a real run for its money when it came out in 1960, 1961. If you're in the market to purchase, make sure you use our purchase link. You can buy it right through Zounds. And drop your questions and comments. We'd love to know what you'd like to see next. We're also going to have a demo that you can check out on the Epiphone 1961 SG. That's at an $899 price point with a hard shell case. We'll compare those. You can let us know what you're in the market for. And at the end of the day, I hope this has given you some great information about the Gibson Les Paul, the Gibson SG Standard 61. What a fun guitar.